I have been living in Brussels for roughly 1.5 years now, and I have come to the realization that being Hungarian is great. Don't misunderstand me, I never thought it was bad, but working and living in the heart of Europe has reaffirmed my conviction that I'm immensely lucky. I'm lucky because I'm part of a nation that still has a solid collective identity, and most of us Hungarians, know where we come from and where we are going. Here in Brussels, the narrative is being pushed by the dominant forces in EU institutions and the media, that the way forward in order to achieve prosperity and unity in Europe is to dilute European nations, to dissolve them in some sort of common European identity, and to do away with the continent's core civilization rooted in Judeo-Christianity. It is basically that narrative, by the way, that we at the European Conservative are trying to counter. We are trying to counter the narrative that is a relentless glorification of their version of multiculturalism and diversity, which, as we are clearly seeing, has had disastrous consequences in Western Europe. We all know too well these consequences in large European cities, including Brussels. Parallel societies, members of which have no intention to integrating into the leading culture, or Leitkultur, as former German Chancellor Angela Merkel put it. And this leads to anomalous behaviors, the result of which, among other things, of course, is that it becomes not exactly safe to walk in certain parts of the city. On a side note, of course, people everywhere, sane Europeans, resist this in their own little ways. Brusselites, for one, by refusing to speak any other language but French. It is their little revenge on the cosmopolitan experts who try to get their residency of registration sorted and are forced to use Google Translate to get things done, or the online forms that you have to fill out to get a refund from a company after some administrative mistake is in Flemish only. Take that, you silly little foreigner. Happened to me, speaking from personal experience. But jokes aside, back in Hungary, things are still different. Hungary is proudly and unapologetically a nation state and intends to remain one. But if you look at it closely, take a look at our past and our present, you understand that this does not mean there's a single monolithic top-down state culture. There are all kinds of influences and identities in Hungarian culture. A most obvious example is Transylvania, which has a very distinct historical culture and historical identity, with the settlers, for instance, who have a deeply rooted special local identity underneath their Hungarian supra-identity. Hungarian conservatives and our conservative government tend to be labeled by Western liberals as ethnic nationalist. Well, the way I see it, there is nothing wrong with acknowledging ethnicity, and there's nothing wrong with nationalism. Nationalism is not about diminishing other nations or wanting to defeat or oppress them. It is about putting your own nation first. But we all understand the negative connotation to this compound. It suggests exclusion, implies racism, and insinuates that when we say Hungary should remain Hungarian, we mean some kind of ethnic purity. This could not be further from the truth. Hungary has historically been accepting, giving shelter to, and integrating people of all kinds of nationalities and ethnicities and faiths. Almost all of these nationalities and ethnic groups have in fact in many ways preserved their special identities, separate identities, and now are recognized minorities with their own self-governments, schools, cultural institutions, and churches. At the same time, all these groups have evolved a supra-identity, a collective Hungarian identity that transcends ethnicity, nationality, and religion. Many fail to or pretend not to realize that. A former US chargé d'affaires, whose name I will not name, has even said that Hungary's very constitution is ethnic nationalist. Well, unless someone has serious reading comprehension difficulties, anyone can realize that this could not be further from the truth either. As a law student, I'm somewhat familiar with the Hungarian constitution. which is, by the way, a beautiful document and is available in various translations, so worth reading. So the Constitution says, and I quote, we promise to preserve the intellectual and spiritual unity of our nation torn apart in the storms of the last century. The nationalities living with us form part of the Hungarian political community and are constituent parts of the state. We commit to promoting and safeguarding our heritage, our unique language, Hungarian culture, the languages and cultures of other nationalities living in Hungary, and along with all man-made and natural assets of the Carpathian Basin. The Constitution also says, and this is key, we believe that our national culture is a rich contribution to the diversity of European unity. We respect the freedom and culture of other nations and shall strive to cooperate with every nation of the world. So this is the type of diversity that Hungary upholds. And I'm convinced that this is the only type of multiculturalism that can function. And, but it is based on core identities and values, that there is one nation and one common culture, cultural Christianity. It is not an imaginary, made-up European one with no roots, no past, no distinct language, culture, and traditions. In Hungary, there's a distinct Hungarianness that bonds us, members of the nation, together. And it is the sum of such nations that can make Europe great again. To conclude, obviously the rest of Europe cannot reinvent as Hungary, but it can learn from our example before it is too late. And hopefully those who think it is already too late are wrong. In the UK, in Germany, in France, we have multi-ethnic societies, whether we like it or not. But divisive multicultural policies can be countered by insisting on national values and standing against the mass migration of those who hate us and these values. As for our common European future, remember, you cannot build a house by starting at the roof and accepting it to float while you work from top to bottom. Instead of assuming the superficial identity offered by the architects of this forcefully homogenized Europe, each of us should start believing in a Europe of nations again. For national identity is the only building block that can serve as the basis of any true European unity. A community where self-respect naturally leads to the understanding and celebration of our differences. We will know when we're on the right path, when it feels good to be European in Brussels, not despite, but because of the proud we feel in being German, French, or Hungarian. God bless our nations and God bless Europe.